Hey guys, it's Sarah with AmericanTrucks.com, and today we have a review and install of the Barricade HD off-road front bumper with LED fog lights, fitting your 19 and newer Chevy Silverado 1500s. This bumper is perfect for the Silverado owner looking for a full width and high clearance front bumper that includes LED lighting, but is still gonna save you a bunch of money over other options. This bumper features steel plate construction with a textured black powder coat finish. So if off-roading is your thing, this front bumper provides much more clearance than the factory bumper, and although it is smaller, it is definitely beefier than the factory bumper, featuring a full steel plate construction. And this option allows you to retain your tow hooks. A lot of other aftermarket options do not. This bumper includes 2 LED pod lights and also comes with plenty of mounts to add additional lighting in the center here. It also features an optional overrider hoop and skid plate that are available separately. So as far as price goes, this bumper comes in at around $775, making it one of the most budget-friendly options you can choose for your Silverado. And for your money, you get a full-width bumper that includes lighting and has extra mounts for adding lighting down the road. I'm giving this install a 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. It does feature direct bolt-up installation, however it does require a little bit of wiring. It is plug and play, so it's not too bad. And one thing I did want to note is that you may need to cut your wheel well liners or remove them completely if you don't like the look of them hanging down. But all in all, this install can be done in about 2 hours. So with that said, let's jump into our install. For this install, you will need ratchets or an impact gun, 18, 15, 14, 13, and 10 millimeter sockets, a T15 Torx socket, the included Allen key, trim panel and pop clip removal tools, and some optional but useful tools include an extension and a small flathead screwdriver. Alright, so the first step in our install with the hood popped, we're going to remove the rad support cover. To remove this cover, you need to remove these pop clips, and the ones that are recessed a little bit, they may be a little more difficult, but for the most part, the rest of the exposed ones should come straight out. All right, so now we're gonna remove the hood latch release, just this extended section, so we're not wrestling it trying to get the cover off. Using a T15 Torx socket, remove these 2 bolts. And remove the cover. With the hood release out of the way, grab this and remove it off your truck. All right, so next up, we're gonna remove the 4 10 millimeter bolts at the top of our grill. Grab a 10 millimeter socket, let's get these removed. All right, now we would grab the grill and pull it straight out to release the tabs, but these wings on the end here, they also have tabs on them. So we're gonna release these first. Just be careful with this trim panel removal tool, or you can tape around the headlight and body to make sure you don't scratch anything. Place your tool behind this edge of the grill and pull backwards. So once the edges are released, now you can grab your grill from the center and pull backwards to release the metal clips. All right, so at this point, we're going underneath the truck to remove the bolts that hold in a bumper support bar. We're just gonna remove these 2 that attach to the frame. The other one can stay on and the bar can go with the bumper. So grab a 15 millimeter socket and remove these bolts. Repeat that on the other side. All right, at this point, we're back up top and we can remove the 4 bolts up top that hold on your bumper. Now you can remove this plastic piece if you'd like, but just pushing it back will expose the 2 bolts we're going for. The first one is a 13. So with a ratchet and a 13 millimeter socket, we're gonna remove this bolt. Now keep in mind while you're doing this to support the bumper because these are the last bolts that hold it on. Now repeat that process with an 18 millimeter socket to remove the larger bolt. Now you can repeat that process on the other side. All right, so once your bumper support bar bolts are removed, we do need to remove this 10mm bolt that is going to the bottom of the frame. Repeat that on the other side. Next up, we need to remove these 18mm bolts that hold on the bumper to the frame. They should be up above your skid plate. So with an 18mm socket and a ratchet, get these removed. Repeat that on the other side. All right, so if the bumper gets hung up, you may want to loosen the final bolt on the bumper support bars. And then it comes right off. All right, now that we have our factory bumper uninstalled from the truck, we can check it out side by side with our Barricade bumper. And as you can see, it's quite a bit smaller than our factory bumper, but just as beefy, if not a little beefier. The smaller bumper will give you some more clearance, and its plate steel design is going to be a lot stronger than the factory bumper, which is about half plastic. In addition, it features a textured black powder coat finish, which is going to give the front of your Silverado that blacked out aggressive appearance that you're looking for. All right, so with that said, let's grab our bumper and get it installed. So these 3 bolts on the end of this frame plate here are what's going to hold on our new bumper. So with a 15mm socket, let's remove all 3 of these bolts. Repeat that on the other side as well. All right, so now we can lift the bumper in place. It's definitely gonna be easier with a friend for this one. Even just have someone hold it in place while you attach the hardware. There is a little lip to rest it on, but I definitely wouldn't count on that until you have some bolts in. With the bumper supported, thread in all 3 bolts into the frame. These are the same bolts that we just took out, so we're reinstalling the factory hardware. With a 15mm socket, tighten these down. Repeat that on the other side. Now there is some adjustability in this bumper. If you do get these all tightened up and it's not sitting perfectly straight, loosen them up a little bit and you can adjust the bumper back and forth until it's sitting perfectly. Grab your 15mm socket and tighten these down. All right, so now we're gonna route our wiring harness from the battery to our pod lights and also inside to the cab for a switch. Now there are lots of different ways to get inside the cab from the engine bay. For demonstration purposes, we're gonna go through the fender and into the passenger door. Starting with this end that goes towards the switch, we've unclipped it. Just route it through the fender. I'm just gonna go along this weather stripping piece here. We can tuck that down later. It's gonna go through the fender and through the piece of felt that goes along to your passenger door. Now there is a large wiring harness behind the battery. You can go through that grommet. You can pretty much route this however you like for your truck. As long as you get the switch within reach, you should be fine. So now with that routed, we do have to find a spot for our relay here. We're gonna shoot for right next to the battery. All right, so again, you can mount this relay wherever you would like. There is a small hole in the battery support. You can attach it there, that works. You can also go right inside the fender and attach it in here. Either way, as long as it's out of the way, not swinging around, that should be good. Next up, we're gonna go to the positive and negative terminals on the battery. So just to show you guys a little bit better look at the top of the battery, I'm just gonna squeeze and remove this cover. There's 2 tabs, one at the front and the back, and just lift straight up. Now again, as long as you're getting power and ground to these, you are fine. You don't have to go to this portion of the battery, but I think it's the easiest, so we're gonna put the eyelet right over top here and the negative right on that part right there. All right, so using a 13mm socket, we're gonna remove this nut off the power side of the battery. Just be really careful with this whenever you are messing with the battery. If you wanna be safe, you can disconnect the terminal. But as long as we are careful, all right, and we're gonna use the path that this wire takes just to make sure it looks as clean as possible. Just right around here. And then slide the eyelet over top of this post. Replace the nut. And with your 13mm socket, tighten it down. Now using a 10mm socket, we're gonna remove this smaller nut here on the negative terminal of the battery. Make sure your wires are routed properly, and we're gonna replace the cover. All right, so now we're gonna route these two wires for our pod lights. And like everything else that we just installed, this highly depends on how you'd like to route it. I'm gonna go down the side of the frame, down in front of the rad support, and pop out in front of this active grill. As long as it's out of the way of your grill and any moving components, you should be fine. You will wanna zip tie this in place, just make sure all these wires are secure. Pull the wire down from in front of your grill, plug it into the connector, and now there should be a good amount of extra space, especially on the passenger side because of how we routed this. So tuck it all up, throw some zip ties on it, make sure that it is out of the way. Repeat that on the other side, and tuck up your wires. All right, so this is what was unplugged earlier. We went through the fender. This section runs to your wiring harness. Plug it in. And now you can run this, just secure it along your dash, underneath here. And then this can be placed anywhere you'd like, within reach to turn on your lights. Peel back the 3M and place it. All right, at this point you can replace the grill. Grab it and slide it into place. It's gonna go back in on an angle, sort of the same way it would go back in on the factory bumper. Line up this tab up top here, line up the bolt holes, and press it into place. Don't forget to press the wings. Replace the factory bolts up top. Grab a 10mm socket and tighten these down. Replace the rad support cover. And replace all of the push pins. Now the finishing touch, don't forget this, replace the hood latch and the Torx bolts. Definitely don't forget this one because it will be difficult to open your hood without it. All right, so once the hood latch is back in place, go ahead and shut your hood, and that is gonna do it for the review and install of this bumper. And remember, for all things Silverado, keep it at AmericanTrucks.com.